correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been following online, but just the sheer amount of fines, the years in prison, was that part of it, or did that happen to where they were pushing that later on to you?
No, that was part of the criminal initially. Was 10 years in prison apiece and $250,000 fines apiece.
There are thousands of people that have this exact same situation. And so when they saw that they took what has been historically accepted as a practical approach to a boundary fence and they elevated it to a point they never have before, it scared thousands of people because they were like, we could be next. If they set this precedent with us, your cabin in the hill, if your fence is a foot over the line onto what happens to be Forest Service land, they would then have the precedent to come in and put you in prison over that as well.
My lawyer eventually later told me that it looks to me like it was built to use time and time again, and it scared him. That part scared him, what he was up against.
I'm here in South Dakota visiting the great family, the Maudes. Heather and Charles here in South Dakota. And if you've been paying attention in agriculture the last year, you might have heard their name because they've been going through absolute Forest Service and other agencies. And before taking you through this tour, I really hope that you would actually listen to the podcast I did with them because it really goes into it all, the details of the last year, but then everything that's led up to this past year. And it makes a lot more sense to do that because you'll be able to see their story along with actually the visualizations of where we're at on their ranch and all these fence lines that have been major issues. So I'm here with Heather and Charles Maude, and we are currently in, is this essentially a shipping container that's been converted?
Yep. Well, it's
a
a refrigerated or freezer shipping container. Yep.
And then this is all the meats, I'm assuming, or what exactly is all in here?
Right.
So this wall is all of our retail cuts organized by cut. And then we have a bumper pull trailer with chest freezers in it that we load each week, and our customers walk through that trailer, choose what they want to purchase, and then we have a tent outside. And then we restock out of this each week. So this is where we hold all of our inventory until the point in which we go and sell it. And so we've got beef, and then further down is pork, and then the last segment is our specialty items. So you're talking like bratwursts, beef sticks, jerkies, things of that nature. So this is storage for the meat business.
Lot and hog and cattle, geez, I cannot speak, with all the prices. So to me assumes that this is what you take to farmers markets to sell.
Yep, so like you would pick up a steak, it has a weight on it from the USDA plant, and we just, like in the case of our individual cuts, like we would take this weight times that price and ring you up under our tent. You can walk through, pick up whatever you want, or people pre-order with us. And we do this every Saturday all winter or all summer long in Rapid City, and every other Saturday all through the winter.
Explain what exactly this paddock is and just the type of cows and what we're looking at here.
So in the one that's off the bigger animals to the right here, there are fat beef that are nearly ready to go into the farmer's market. They're about 26 months old. So they're nearly finished, and they're weighing about 1,400 pounds. And
is it the ideal weight you want?
It depends on the animal. We finish them based on what their conformation will handle, their finish, and their breed makeup. Honestly, they're as individuals. That's where we can be a little more specialized. The smaller we are, we can hand pick those animals when they're ready instead of doing that as a mass group. But we can go through there once every couple weeks and pick out the finished animals that go to market or to slaughter. The left pen here is our steer calves from this year's crop. And they just finished weaning. Well, a week ago we weaned them. And
so before continuing, for people that might not understand what you just said, just that sentence, the steers from the crops, and then
this year's crop,
and then weaning.
Okay, so weaning is just separating them from their mothers to continue, to go, I guess, on their way to the finish to slaughter. But the cows just need 3 to 4 months of reprieve again before they raise next year's crop. And so we take the calves off at, what are they?
About 6 months of age.
Yeah, 7 months old, something like that. And then we put them in a lot. These steers will be here until January. They eat mainly a roughage-based diet, but this group of cattle right here, these steers represent what we do, as that's our majority of our business. That's the highest pay item here. That's the cream, the top of the line animals. That's what we are in the business to produce, as a feeder calf that later goes on to a finishing yard and represents really what we're doing with on a smaller scale beside them with finishing.
Yeah, the largest percentage of our cattle are marketed in a traditional fashion. We will sell these steers before the end of this year. You asked about being this year's crop. That means that they were born this spring, the spring of 2025. And a much smaller percentage of what we raise will end up going through our farmers market local meats program.
This is kind of something I pride myself on.
Yeah.
So our cows they're on the range year round. We calve them in the month of March, I guess, kind of up close, but they're out. They're not in lots. They're not in barns. They're out. So this year we weaned in September. Normally that's an late October, early November thing. It's because we've been so dry that we're having to match our grass use with our range, and it's much cheaper and easier on everything to wean the calf and put them in a feed yard and let that cow condition before winter gets to her, hits her later on, and get into better body condition, and she can winter lots of storms that way without additional feed input. So that's our angle for weaning so early. This is a month early, but it's strictly to manage range is what we're up to.
Very cool.
Because those calves are pulling exceptional amount at this point in their life from those cows. So those cows, and then you got the calves out there too grazing, so they're pulling a lot out of that pasture. And if you don't have it out there, you're going to overgraze. You're going to run out of grass in the middle of the winter when it's not ideal, and then you have to start hauling hay to them, supplementing them other ways.
And then all of these storage bins, is this for feed for them?
Yeah, they're used for hog and cattle feed, and then we do sell seed on the farming side of it.
And plant seed.
And plant our own seed. So they're multiple purpose bins, but yeah, it's strictly to go through these animals.
He develops all the hog rations also, so you have ingredients for both calf rations and hog rations in some of them.
What's the process then when adding anything to one of these bins too? Because I just realized I've not gone to any place yet to where we've really talked about just silo bins as a whole, because that's one thing you notice driving around America, visiting farms, there's these massive bins.
Yep.
But what exactly is stored in there? But then also, what's that process of deciding when to put X or Y in there?
Well, a lot of them they're versatile storage facilities for any sort of product that will flow in and flow out. So, for instance, these bins here, we'll take a screw auger, I guess is what it is. It's just a grain auger. That's
corkscrew.
A corkscrew that's power driven, and it'll load those bins with grain. Like around here, it depends on how much grain you're trying to store, of what quality or quantity or what product is what bin you end up using, because we have several different sizes. Honestly, this is a very, very small grain facility.
Yeah.
A lot of ours, we feed a lot of forage, so we don't need grain facilities. We have a huge silage pile. Well, it isn't huge, but it's big for what we do. That's all been produced. It's grain, corn. So we have a certain amount of the corn that's already in the silage, so we don't have to have storage for that. But yeah, it's all dependent on what kind of producer you are. You know, those great big bins in those cities, they're owned by an elevator. You know, and
By an elevator?
Yep, by a co-op. We'll call it a
Okay.
co-op a lot of times. Sometimes they're big conglomerates, ADM, a Cargill, if you get into the big cities and stuff like that. But it's just a storage facility for grain, and it's way to the coast or to its end designation. Yep.
Have you lost any to weather? Because that's one thing I've seen too, is whenever folks have posted that a storm came in and just wiped out one massive silo bin, and for the average person, they might not realize just how catastrophic that is.
Yeah.
Well, to a grain farmer in the Midwest, that's pretty big. That's what
like
he depends on.
That's like his calf crop to us.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to protect that. It's without that storage device, he doesn't have anything to protect his income.
Yeah.
Growing facility, I built this and we moved in 2010. It is 12 crates with there's supposed to be 18 crates. And this is where the sows, which is the mothers, come in to have babies they're in here about 17 days. And it just mainly is to protect the babies from getting laid on and stepped on.
And the weather.
Yep. And I didn't have a farrowing facility before this when I lived at my dad's, and we just had pens, and our death loss was quite a bit higher. So right now we're kind of in a weird position. We have pigs in here that are weaned. That's kind of abnormal in a facility like this. But we've been fighting the rotavirus so bad, and we found out that if you leave the animal in the pen that they were in, that the transition and the stress period in the weaning process, we can have quite a bit better survival. So that's part of our reasoning behind this, and we're very full. And you'll see that as we go through this whole hog facility. We're stretching our buildings to the limits with our marketing the market we have for livestock.
Yeah, it has grown also. And so our facilities, we're trying to keep up until we can afford to grow or to build more.
But this will be 70 degrees in the wintertime.
It's heated, not cooled.
Yep, but we do have natural ventilation, which is entirely not seen in the hog industry. They power ventilate everything with fans, and because of disease, when you get back into hog country, you have a lot of diseases that you need to worry about, where we're isolated enough, and we only bring semen on our facility, so that limits our chances of disease issues.
Now I'm curious, do you ever have any, because with the pig industry, a lot of it is indoors. And so for the average consumer that, again, have never met a farmer, they might see this and just have aversions to it. I don't know if do you ever have any people comment to you all about it?
Yeah, we explain this a lot. And if you've been through a average South Dakota winter, it makes sense to them. These pigs on average, these are a little bigger right now, but on average at 60 to 80 pounds, they go out on dirt in large pens and are finished. And so when you explain that it is an animal husbandry decision for the animal's benefit that you keep them in a heated barn, and that the reason we save 1.5 pigs by having them on crate versus when they farrow out in a pen or any other, and that is beneficial to the little pigs. And then also, if you've ever been pregnant, and if somebody were to give you your own space for 2 or 3 weeks, and you explain that, especially to women, like there is nothing wrong with isolation and not having to move around in your last 3 or 4 days of pregnancy, and then like the 2 weeks prior after you've given birth. That's, and we just explain that to people, and this is why we do it. It's weather related. We get more live pigs. Our sows, so pigs have a pecking order. There is a dominant down to the least dominant animal in every pen. And so when you put them in here, that is a stress reducer for them because there is no competition. They each have their own food and water source. And so, I say that as someone that came into this very critical of farrowing crates because they have no good press, right?
Well, that's why I asked, because this, from the outside looking in.
Yeah, they look awful.
Yeah.
And I was very critical of them, and Charles explained these things to me, and I was like, yeah. And so that would be my own observations as someone that didn't grow up with pigs, had only read negative things about them. And so I physically see it. Our sows self-load. You do not self-load a 400-pound pig where she doesn't want to go.
They
And
will make a lot of noise. They
yes,
will let you know.
9 times out of 10, all you do is you stand back there. The first one climbs in a crate, you shut the door, you walk to the next one, and they just go in by themselves and are happy to do so. Oh, time and again. So to me, that means it's a positive thing for them, and we get more live pigs, and they have a less stressful farrowing experience. And then again, like he said, it's 17 to 21 days that they're in here, and then they're back outside for 4 months. So it's a short time frame. And then, you know, the dirt raised hogs are great, but if they all die because of a blizzard, then it isn't profitable. And we do this because we love it, but it is also our source of income. So they do have to generate a profit.
Yeah.
So that is the way we have found to do it. And then where we do so many things, we need a place where the pig can largely take care of itself. Like, let's say we're calving heifers and it's 30 below zero. That happened this year. We had a group of sows in here. It's 70 degrees. You're checking on them, you're feeding them, but they don't require anything beyond that because they are in a temperature controlled environment. So it's just a lot of factors that go into it. And a lot of people will ask, but if you take the time to explain why, then that makes sense to them as well.
Facilities. Now with the feed, how is that different compared to, say, your cows?
Okay, this is more of an energy-rich diet because these are simple stomach animals, just like we are. So we're like this diet consists of corn or milo, and soybean meal, and a balance of minerals and vitamins and some synthetic amino acids to balance their amino, because they're a simple stomach. So then you have to balance them on amino acids and for lean muscle growth. And that is where the efficiency in hogs is balancing based on energy and amino acid makeup of the feed. So.
And cattle require forage.
Yep.
Hogs don't require forage. When he says simple stomach, like us, if a pig eats junk, a pig is junk.
He takes the fats that are in his meat or in his food and puts it into his fat in his body. So if you were to take bad fat, say fish fat or something like that, that pig would taste like a fish. And a cow can take anything and convert it through the rumen and the four compartment stomach and make volatile fatty acids that can be converted to proteins and energy and one thing or another to be deposited in the body. So it goes through a whole different change.
Two very different nutrition and digestive systems.
And it's so important too because just on grocery store pork versus say all the farms and ranches I've been visiting with their pork, it is night and day difference of what the feed is, but then also the result, the color of the meat, but then also the taste. Because I've not really bought grocery store pork in a long time, and at least from the big chains, because there's really not a whole lot I could trust on that.
Well, and like what we pride ourselves in here too a little bit is we might not have the leanest product, but we got the highest quality product. You know, we'll just say confinement type hogs. They're indoors. They can they can do with less fat. But when 30 below hits these hogs, they better have some fat on them. Yeah. And ultimately, fat is the meat eating experience that you actually
It's the
taste.
flavor.
It's the flavor in the meat, and so.
I was going to say, and the nutrition
and
too.
Oh yeah, it's a
nutrition,
natural form of fat. Fat as a whole has such a bad rap, but there's
Especially lard.
There are so many types of fat, and your animal-derived fats have a lot of good nutritional value to the human.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. These will take 1 to 3 months longer than your typical confinement hog also. You know, and I love the fact that you can go to the grocery store if you so choose and get a safe pork product for relatively little money. But we aren't even trying to compete with that. That's not the angle we're going with. And so as Charles said, we are all about the quality eating experience when it's done. So it takes a little more time. They are the pits to raise on dirt where it's sandy and it's soft, but we think that it's like they can have a mud hole in the summer when it's 100 degrees. And so we think that just that dirt freedom, ability to move around, that also adds into taking a little bit longer. But in the other side of that is we shoot for a 300-pound butcher hog. Anybody that comes to us from someone else, it just seems like a lot of people are shooting for they're finishing them out at 225, 250 pounds. So we take a little more time, but we've also worked on the genetic side of that to make that time convert into more pounds of meat per animal, which our customers like. Gets their freezer full. Then we price accordingly, and we try to make them efficient, but also ensure that it's a really good end quality product and size and like intermuscular fat and everything else.
Yeah. Now, Charles, for you, mentioning how much you've loved pigs since '97.
Loved.
Loved.
Oh, it's loved?
Oh no,
What
it's
did-
not.
Loved. Sorry, I should say, why do you love pigs so much?
Yes.
I don't know, honestly. It's one of those things that has really fit into where I've been in life. I started raising them as a 4-H project. It turned into where it was my side hustle besides the cows, so I didn't have to go to town to get a job. And now with Heather's expertise in the marketing and whatnot, it's turned into a full-time business. But it's just fit, you know. It's good cash flow. It's we don't have to have any more acres of land to really take these on. I mean, yeah, we do produce some corn for the pigs, but we have to for the fat cattle too. But I mean, we can do it on a small amount of acres.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just cool. With agriculture, I mean, when we think of legacy and just passing down to your family, Charles, can you just explain what this is?
These are my grandpa's tractors on my mother's side. They were his tractors he used in his whole career. That tractor over there was the biggest tractor he ever owned, the style day, and but he just ran a cow operation in middle South Dakota, and but
And then that was your
that was my grandpa's Grandpa Maude. That truck ran on this operation up until 1973. It's a 48, doesn't have a hoist on it, so it was unloaded with a shovel. My dad will tell you he unloaded that thing more than he ever wanted to, but it signifies the years of hard work, I guess, that our operation has taken to get to this far, where we're at this point. So.
And then every time you walk past all of this stuff that, I don't know, because to me, I would always think about this stuff walking past it.
I do, you know, and that's like the one tractor, we're going to try to use it for a lawn ornament. It's so far gone, it's really not fixable, but still something that signifies it being part of me and part of our family and here.
I was gonna say it's probably cool to see, you know, them sitting on it and
Yep.
and just hanging out.
Yep. But you know, for instance, there's been, Heather will make fun of me about this, there's been 3 tractors that I know of in the last 100 years that have left this operation. And one of them was my great grandpa's Waterloo boy that sits at my great uncle's place, and it's still complete. It just never, and that was one tractor left. One was traded and the other one would burn up in a fire. And so they're all here. Everything we've ever had is still here.
And that's something I noticed with a lot of farms is you'll see something like this that's just old, rusted, broken down, but you could just think of just the time of the farm when this was being used. And
Yep.
I don't know, to me, it's another unique aspect of agriculture.
Like 2 years ago, we had a bin that we needed an auger tractor for that just sit there and do a 30-horse job on a 6-inch auger to unload a bin before we grind feed. And there's an old farm mall that we have, a hired man had, that he went and resurrected and brought over there and put on that to do that 30 30 horsepower job and it hasn't moved in 2 years, but it'll start anytime you go out there, cold, hot, it doesn't matter. They were dependable and still are dependable. Baler sitting over there, we have to put up because of the forage. We have a center pivot on the next place we'll go to that its only job is to water that 55 acres of land. You know, for instance, my wife's meat business, she's got a freezer truck that there's no use for it other than the meat business. We did go out and buy us a semi this last year, which we've probably needed for a long time, but it has grain trailers. We can move grain, it moves hay, it moves livestock. So, you know, that kind of fits into multiple diversifications.
And go ahead.
But then you'll probably see as we walk down through here, there's uke tires, you know, dirt mover tires. We make water tanks out of them. Agriculture is always the one that gets everybody's leftovers to make things work, it seems like. If you look through the countryside, you'll find some pretty interesting ideas that guys in agriculture have came up to use to make their living.
Well, that's why farming forces you to be, forces ingenuity.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why I laugh so much, just reflecting back on conversations with, I guess, say city folks, for example. I just laugh whenever they have that view because they cannot be further from the truth, clearly.
Yeah.
And then if you tell them to go try to do that, good luck.
Yeah.
One thing that always comes back when we talk about this subject is when I was probably 9-10 years old, we were up by the Ellsworth Air Force Base. My uncle had a place up there and we were working cows at this place, and there was a barn there that was probably 25 by 50 or something, you know, in that nature of size, and it was sheeted, tinned with barrel tops, and it was all barrels that it looked like fish scales, and somebody had tinned that building like that. Roof, sides, the whole works was tinned with barrel tops. And I mean, you can make anything work if you put your mind to it.
Yep. So if you made it this far in the tour and you have not listened to the podcast I did with these two, Charles and Heather, I would suggest you pause this and really listen to that podcast, because it adds a lot of context to what we're about to be shown here with this piece of property. And so, Charles, if you can just explain what we're looking at here, and then just based off everything the last year or two, helping really explain just the issues you've been facing and putting everything in the context.
Well, it's kind of goes way back. This river bottom has been in our family for 100 and almost 15 years now, and over to the south end of this meadow we've owned all the time, and there's been different pieces and ranches added to this. So as you're looking down on this river bottom right now, the green part is the part we owned all along, and the brown part is the land in question, the 25 acres, and I guess we did not operate, we did not do anything with the piece in brown. Those are weeds that are standing still. It's all planted to winter wheat at this time, and so the green shows to be it's all should be green down underneath the weeds. But anyways, the fence is out on the outside of the brown between it and the trees, and that's the fence that was put there in prior to 1950, and by my great grandpa that lived just out of sight around this hill. And when we go down there, we'll be able to point that area out better. But where we're standing right now is federal land. On the other side where those trees are is federal land. So this is an 80-acre parcel that jets into federal land is what it amounts to. We own more acres to the north and back up to the west, and across the road where we came in here is our homestead from 1917. So
I think it's really critical, and I wish more people would come and physically see it. We appreciate you guys doing that, just because you look at this and you see, here is this, right here is this. We as the landowner said, well, once we get a survey and find out where we're at, we're willing to trade you something that better suits your requirements for something that has been managed in a private fashion for 115 years. And rather than we were never given a written violation that we had done anything wrong. We were never offered any form of resolution, ever.
Or due process.
There was no due process. And so for it to escalate to the point of criminal charges over a historic family place that you can look at the management of, and then a family willing to work with you, it is outrageous. And there is no question in my mind why so many people picked this up and were so concerned when they took this and decided to turn it into something criminal instead of willingly working with the landowner. And the amount of taxpayer dollars and resources that were invested into what amounts to 25 acres, and there are 20-ish acres of ours right there, is just, I still have a hard time wrapping my head around it, and I went through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we appreciate you coming to look at it. Anything else?
Well, and if you survey the area, you can start seeing where the fences are not straight because of the way the river runs, the way the river breaks are. You cannot fence some of this. For instance, right here, that fence line that comes from the south right here should go straight up over this nasty hill and down into that draw and back up the other side. You physically cannot keep the fence there.
Yeah. And go ahead.
So we have put fences where we can keep them up. And right over here, and we'll go through that gate, at the top of this draw is where we access this river bottom. That is where the complaint was supposedly found, where our trespassing signs were up. And it's onto the Forest Service, and our private land is here. And it was mainly just to keep people from, we didn't care if they walked in there. It was more of the driving component of that.
And
but
that's the
go
only
ahead.
place on that whole fence where there was a no trespassing sign. And we have never seen the documentation to verify that that was an actual complaint either.
Of course.
So so many people have questions and come to us with them. And unfortunately, we still have a lot of the same questions. And that's a really challenging part, is why did it happen? Who let it happen? And like, how do you, everybody says, oh, you get on with your life. You do, but on the other hand, like what happens tomorrow if we don't get this resolved in a way that prevents them from doing it again?
Yep, absolutely. Because that's the thing that I would probably be thinking of. It's kind of like the same with a storm, that that storm has hit, it could happen again.
Yep.
You have no idea when, but it could hit again.
Yep, and by all accounts, there was no intent, we never did anything wrong. They brought everything, and we reacted in a manner of, let's resolve it, let's work with you. And then you see this, what occurred to us, and you can't help but be a little head shy about, will it happen again? Yeah, so optimistic with the current Secretary of Ag, as we mentioned in the podcast. Optimistic with the direction she's going. She has been wonderful. And we are at this time working to utilize the Small Tracts Act, which is designed specifically for situations like ours, where the farm or ranch has never sold. You find a place where the boundary was off, nobody knew about that, and then you sell it to the landowner. And we are in the process of working on that for these acres, and we did work directly with the USDA and the Forest Service to get a change to allow existing practices to continue until we get that permanent resolution done. So, like I said, we are head shy, but at the same time, by all accounts, our current Secretary of Agriculture is making good on the promises she said during her press conference with us in DC and working with us to fix it.
I also feel like the second aspect from mentioning in the podcast, whenever she heard that it never went, or if you can reiterate that point again too, because she thought everything was all right, but then...
Yeah. So it took us longer to get it communicated back up to Secretary Rollins that we could not use this land following that press conference in DC than it took for the Forest Service to bring us charges when this all began, because when we had criminal charges brought against us, that stopped this resolution process. It just stops. And so once the criminal part was over this May, we went back to where we were
May 1st the year before.
May 1st of the year before, to where, like, how do we fix this? We need we still, to our knowledge, there has been no official survey done. The USDA did send a surveyor out. I just haven't seen the results. Mm-hmm. But prior to that, I'm assuming it's in the right place, but let's verify the line. And so while we were working through those steps, And when she found out we were not able to use this, we couldn't use our private either because of the nature of it. It's out there on the tip of the pivot. She said, well, put a temporary use agreement in place that allows the Maudes to continue existing practices until we get a permanent resolution reached. What kicked out to us was that we could reseed it to native forages, and it was basically what they allow after a fire has come through. And it would have been a permanent change on our grazing permit, meaning that if the local U.S. Forest Service ranger read it, it dictated that we had to get native forages, replant it, and it could have been very expensive on us. It could have taken several years, and it would have been required. When Secretary Rawlins found out what she requested versus what we received, I understand, I haven't spoken with her about this, but I understand she furloughed several people. We then worked directly with the chief of the Forest Service and our regional forester, and were able to get it in place as she requested, which is continuing existing practices. So we do very sincerely thank her and everybody else involved in that, because this is our feed base. Our entire place was built around this property right here. And this is our only irrigated property, and we're very grateful to have a Secretary of Agriculture that understands that, and who understands the significance of, if you are planning to resolve it, you need to allow the existing practices to continue. Where there was no, the charges were dismissed. They have said that it was wrong to come after us in any fashion through the court system. So now we are back to, we in this agency resolve it. And so in the interim, it is logical that management should be able to continue as it has since before that agency even existed.
So when they got done surveying in 1886, that's where the river ran, was right on the outside of that fence. So, or on the outside of these lots, sorry. And so they started over there and they ended at the river because that's a county line. This isn't Custer County. That's on Pennington County on the other side. So they had this leftover piece of land that necessarily, it might be odd increments, this one, what's it add up to, 56 between the two of them?
53.
53 between the two of them, whatever. And so it didn't fit a 40 description or anything like that, so they just made that lot 2 in section 8, lot 3 in section 8. We already own lot 1 and lot 4 down there. So we owned like this around these 2 lots. And this is the corner between lots 2 and 3. That's the corner between lots 1 and 2. And actually that corner down there that's in the river is between lots 3 and 4.
And then this was like the stake. What was why did they put this here, and who put this here?
Travis Lunders and his survey crew last April put this here. They put boundary line, they put every about 100 feet they had a stake all the way down along here to keep us from farming this land.
These red ones, these tall red ones.
Tall red ones. And above it, it said no trespassing.
It said property boundary, national grassland behind this sign, is what it said above it.
So pretty much those signs documented the corners, and then after that it was that sign that she had down along here and then on the north end too. So they were trying to lay this out so we couldn't use it.
And we didn't. From the time that they conducted the survey on, we did not touch that side. That's why it still looks so different than this side. Charles continued to control weeds on this side. And this has the standing crop from 2024 in it, along with all the weeds. So that is why. And they did tell the internal review that we did not listen to them and did not
quit managing.
Yeah, quit using it. And so when we brought them down here, we showed them this and said, we feel like this is pretty clear. Yeah. That we managed this and that we did leave this alone from the time in which they actually requested it.
Yeah, because when we were up at the top, that's how you even described at the beginning. You can clearly see there's part green and then a massive part that's not green.
Yep, and that they're weeds, they're just what's covering the land. It's not not something planted.
The green crop has been put here less than a month ago. So it's since we've been able to operate that the wheat is now coming under all the weeds, and so.
And then going back to, again, the fence line, is this the fence line, or is it the fence line that's over there?
It's that line right there.
So their survey states that this is the boundary line. We don't We would like an actual survey. We believe they're probably right, but we would like them to follow their protocols and do an actual survey. But we assume this is probably right. This fence right here is what has always been used as the management and property boundary.
And so so the Forest Service is claiming that because you have that there and all of this is theirs, this is what...
This is what they say we stole.
Infractions happen.
Okay.
Yep.
They are claiming this is what we stole from here to that fence.
But the way the indictment was, and we talked about that earlier today, was the indictment was loosely wrote. And so we're pretty positive that he was trying to get us for that piece of land that jots up there where the road's at too, for using that at the same time as our private land. Even though it's the same group of cows, almost, I mean, same time of year, he was grabbing at straws.
And it was so unclear, like different
Yeah.
attorneys would give us different perspectives on how it was written. So that's another question.
Yeah,
Like,
one thing was just here, the next thing it was both, the way it was wrote.
some people said that's just the way you write indictments with regard to juries. That's not our world. So we don't know.
And then for the plot that was over there that you still owned, you were mentioning that you were trading, was it that for the rest of this?
Right.
Well, that's that's our initial plan. That's off
What?
the table now.
Yeah. Yeah, that big tree down there. That's
From
big.
there, that direction.
There's the two, then there's one more to the left of them. From about that left tree back in there are 20 acres that we own on their side of this same fence, which goes to what we have said the whole time, that fences are put in practical places.
Every time this river bottom floods, these fences
They're gone.
they're gone. Like this fence here is said to really stood the test of time because it's on that berm. It might flood through it, break the bottom wires or something like that, fill with debris, but it never has really ever ripped it completely out. You get down in there where the river is vicious, it'll be completely gone. The banks will be gone.
In 19, this was all underwater. There are years that it comes up. So yeah, one of the things we offered during the one meeting we had with management on May 1st was to trade our acres. Then those had never been cultivated. We've never had a no trespassing sign on that. We have always allowed them to use that as though it were public land. We've always allowed the public full access to it. Mm-hmm. And so what we offered was that we trade that for this. We get a survey. That was going to be 4 or 5 acres short, we thought. So then we would be writing a check to them for those 5 acres difference. That is one of the options we proposed May 1st.
And they shut it down immediately? Or?
Well, it was just we don't know.
And then they come back with the indictment.
And then they said, well, no matter what we do, it's going to take a survey. And surveys take months to maybe even over a year. And then 6 days later, like I said, at 4:45, we get an email. I'm doing a survey. I can do what I want. I will go where I want per this state statute. And the next day, this was planted. And he just staked out across it, drove along this line. It does say in that state statute you cannot do damage. And they did drive.
He drove right down that hill and come over here.
And drove across, just like it'd be like if we drove across this now. You know, it would do damage to the crop, and staked along here. And from that, then you're like, well, what's going on? So again, that's the point. We reached out to the sheriff and the congressional. We just said, we're just not comfortable with how this is going. We went into this thinking this was to determine a path of resolution. We were told this was months to a year out to get to this point. Nobody's telling us anything. We did call the ranger and she goes, well, I don't know. We haven't had time to discuss anything, and he's a great guy. If you listen to him, you'll get along just fine. And she is who the Forest Service considers the managing entity of this. Mm-hmm. So that's who we have to work with to resolve it. So when she tells us that, and you're just kind of like, well, what is going on? You have to start questioning that.
Absolutely.
So that's the point in which we did that. But yeah, we offered to trade. We suggested utilizing the Small Tracts Act. So in hindsight, it's easy to discuss this. Going into it, we had no idea what was to come, right? We genuinely believed we were trying to figure out, how do you resolve this with this agency? What are our options? We've never had a problem with them. We've never faced, so we were just kind of like, you're Google searching and you're calling older neighbors that you think may have done this at some point and just like, how does this work? If you have a boundary issue with the Forest Service, and if it does end up being the case that it ended up being where our fence is off the line, how do we fix it? Well, that's what we're thinking, and then boom.
And then this is also why you, the end listener and watcher, really have to care about where your food comes from, but all the farmers and ranchers in this country, because it's clear even if you comply, if you're doing it the right way, and on top of not doing anything wrong in the first place, that doesn't matter. And this is happening everywhere. And yeah, it's just insane corruption that most people are not aware of whatsoever. And I don't know, that's why it's funny that people think that that can't be possible, but then, well, here it is.
Here it
It's
is, yeah.
happening constantly.
Yeah.
Yep, it rears its head everywhere.
Yeah, and I think it scared so many people because this right here, the putting a fence in a practical spot in the west in rugged, this is as easy as it gets fencing federal lands. From here west, it gets rougher, and it scared them because this happens everywhere, both ways. Just like we have land on their side, they have land on ours. But if you're going to bypass everything and just start criminally indicting people, it scared a lot of people.
And it goes back to what you said in the podcast that I didn't even really think about, was ranching is the only industry left to where most people are the landowners, and that's why.
There's a fight for control of lands, and particularly lands in the West, because these are the last great open landscapes where large swaths of land are privately owned, and private property rights are important.
It's one of the many important things about America.
It is, yeah, and it isn't just land, and if we degrade them in our western landscapes, pretty much that then opens the door to degrading them when it comes to owning your home, your vehicle. Anything that you own is that you have a right to that property that you have purchased. And yeah, when those things are circumvented, or when a general misunderstanding that occurs on century-old places are used as an opportunity to try to remove good standing citizens from that land and destroy them, their business, their legacy, their future, it's a very serious issue that none of us can close our eyes to.
It's just, I mean, that's why I do all of this. It's just freaking brutal. There's no other way to put it. It's just freaking brutal.
Yeah, and wrong. It's just wrong. And it's hard when most of us, right, don't we all seek to be good people? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that goes, again, what I said with him too. You're saying that they all thought he was just this nice guy, but no, they're messing with a good man that would stand up for what he believes in. And that's a massive difference too. And that's also what I find funny with, say, like Bill Gates. They're the nice guy.
Yeah.
They are the nice portray, but behind closed doors, very evil and not good people.
No.
And ranching is full of good people, and that's to me also why they're so fully attacked.
Yep. Private industry in America is full of good people, and ranching is a private industry. And so it feels like we're all under attack. Yeah. Yep. But we are strong.
Very.
Yep.
I mean, if that goes from just talking on just the industry or the history of the hog industry, but just learning about just the 1800s as a whole, coming out in the West.
Right. Yep.
I mean, you're just saying your family coming from east to west South Dakota, just in that, people can't even envision trying to do horse and buggy through that. That's because now we have interstates. You can just easily do that.
Well, my great-grandpa died with a pistol on his hip. I mean, that was in 1963. So you know dang well that this wasn't a very settled place until after that period of time. If he felt like he needed to carry a pistol, there was a reason.
Yeah.